Second. Awesome. I guess I'll just click all these buttons because I don't think we need sound, but here we go. So Menti is kind of a fun tool if you're not familiar with it. All you need to do is go to your phone or computer and go to www.menti.com, M-E-N-T-I. You can see it here on the shared screen, and it will prompt you to put in a code. And when you've done that, this question will come up. What word would you use to capture your feelings in this moment in time? And if this is all too much and you just can't bear to do it, that is fine. To put in the chat and someone will stick it in the Menti for you. So I'm going to give you, see, again, I need some traveling music or some thoughtful music that I won't sing for you. But what I would recommend now, take a breath, think about how you're feeling and what word would you use to capture your feelings in this moment in time? There's no wrong answers. For example, bewildered, very lovely word. Excited, coming up big. The more you use a word, the bigger it gets. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Hopeful, enthusiastic, wonder, anxious. So certainly an anxious time. Curious. I love how they move around. Tired and achy. Oh no, like COVID. Curious is getting bigger. Hopeful is getting bigger. Feel free to put things in the chat if you prefer. Hopeful, anxious, curious, excited, unsure, tired, achy, enthusiastic, rushed, bewildered, which changed color. Oh. Excited. Well, in hopes of not being too rushed, I'm going to take 3 more breaths and let this fill in, and then we'll move in. I know it's a rushed, anxious, tired, and achy time, and also an excited, hopeful, curious, and ready time. And sad. I don't know if that's sad because of the this transition or not, but certainly there's a lot of room for sadness. Anticipatory. All right, I'm going to stop the share on this, but we'll come back to it in a little while, and I'll be able to share this with you in its final purpose, in its final iteration later. And I see glad here in the message. Can someone can you stick that in, either Casey or Trang, just throw it into the Menti so that glad is in. Thank you. So as I said, this is startup number 1, and startup number 1 is part of a startup plan that, you know, it feels like a lot of things happen and sort of what we used to do pre-pandemic and then what we do now. But one of the things we've learned about startups in pandemic times is that actually it makes sense to kind of break them up and spend some time over some time getting to know each other. And so this one in particular is startup number 1, meaning it's a time to get to know KC better. But there'll be a startup number 2 in January that I'll talk about more in a minute. But let me talk about what matters about this time together, why we're here. So first of all, it's a new time. So anytime a clergy person, a senior leader comes into a community, it's a time to, you maybe have heard the expression that every time a person leaves or enters a team, that it's a new team. And that's even more so for a senior leader time. So in this time together, in this era, you're celebrating a new chapter. Every time a new senior leader comes in, it's a new chapter and a time for a new beginning. And that's an opportunity for celebration. But it's also an opportunity to get to know each other and to do so with some deliberation and over some course of time. And why does that matter? Well, it's important to get to know each other because, as we'll talk about more in January, every community and every person comes with kind of a how did things happen around here sensibility that can be easily stumbled across. And maybe this has already happened, but I remember when I started in my congregation back in the day in Germantown, Maryland, I started off, they said, okay, well, it's the beginning. You'll probably want to do like our traditional water communion. And I was like, okay, having every assumption that I knew exactly what they meant by that. And so on the Sunday morning in question, I did the whole thing. And we had 2 services and people came up in between and told me, but you forgot all the things that we do in this particular worship service. And I was like, but I don't know what those things are. And so you see that like part of the fish swimming in the water phenomenon is that everybody's swimming in their own little water. And sometimes you run into each other without knowing what that water is. And so this time where we get to know each other is an important one for leaders and communities to get to know each other slowly and deliberately so that we can avoid we can learn about those myths and norms ahead of time and avoid some of the tensions that come when we just run right into each other. So that's the purpose of the overall startup model that we're starting with today. Now, part of what today is, is going to be me talking to KC, and KC is going to have a lot of opportunity to be speaking, but we also want a lot of input from you about what KC needs to know more about Wes, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. So, sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought when I was going to reduce this. Hold on just one second. This is the beginning of a conversation. You'll learn some things today, and as you go through the year, you'll learn some other things. It'll be the beginning of stories. I think that you were probably already wishing you heard a couple of things about Casey and you want to know more. Same with KC. KC's heard a couple of things or had a couple of conversations and is looking to know more about you. So what I'm hoping to do now, if I can chat with everyone here, I guess I can chat out, is have you checked into this Google Doc. And the question here is, what does KC need to know more about at Wes? And that's just going to be open. Just throw things in there as you're so moved, and you can wait until the end and see if there's anything that comes to mind that you picked up on or heard of, and you want to make sure that Casey gets a chance to find out more. You don't have to tell the whole story today. Just put in a marker so that Casey can follow up later on. So what I would love to do now is extend the spotlight opportunity to have Casey join me in whatever this Zoom world is. And we're just going to do a little question and answer for a little while. Here they are. Hello. I was already admiring the pumpkins.
Hello. Yes, I have some pumpkins. I have some fringe. Here we are.
Be rocking October, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some questions already set up to just talk to KC about. And KC, I think you can just answer as long or as short as you're interested in doing. And we'll just have a conversation and go from there.
Sounds good.
Again, if you want to chat me a question, feel free to do that. So my first one's pretty standard. What has led you to this kind of work and this serving communities and religious communities in this way? And what has been surprising about Washington, D.C. so far?
Those are both really good questions. There's like a very long version of that first answer. And I don't know that we need to do the very long version. But all I ever really wanted to do was something that helped people. I thought I was going to be a doctor until I was about 17 years old and realized that I didn't want to do the things that a doctor actually does. And then I wanted to do HIV research, and then I was not good at organic chemistry and not interested enough in it to pull myself through, not being particularly given to it. And I wanted to do something that mattered, and the thing that wound up fitting with my desire to do something that mattered to people and the skills that I most readily possessed and was most excited to develop further, which were communication and connection skills, was ministry. And so it was a pretty abrupt realization. I did not, I was not a child who like dreamed of being a minister. I didn't have a minister until I was in my 20s. I didn't really know what that relationship was like. And so it was such a surprise that I couldn't say it without laughing for the first 2 weeks after I decided that I wanted to go to seminary. And I literally went to a bunch of my friends, all lived in the same house, like 30 plus of my friends lived in one very big house. And I went around and knocked on doors and said, hey, I'm gonna go to seminary. I just laughed and they were all like, yeah, duh, of course you're gonna do that. So it was such a surprise to me and not a surprise at all for the people around me. And then there was another piece of that question about what has been surprising about Washington, D.C. so far. And I apologize. Currently, some of what's surprising is that a cat is trying to climb into a cupboard underneath my legs. But Washington, D.C. is both bigger and smaller than I think I thought it was. It is very much a city, but it's also much quicker to get across than I might have imagined it was. And if you're coming home late at night on a Sunday night, which I sometimes am, it's pretty sleepy looking, which is actually a very cute way to see it. And I think I've been pleasantly surprised at how beautiful it is. One of my best friends in Los Angeles used to tell me how ugly Los Angeles was. And I kept being like, what do you mean? It's always summertime. You can go to the beach. What do you mean? And then I came here for my candidating week at the end of April and was like, oh, this is different. And being here as summer is starting to turn into fall really is, oh, right, this is the fall that everybody is so into. Fall in Ohio it's very hot and then it's sludge for 6 months. And fall in California doesn't exist. So this has been a really kind of magical experience of me suddenly being like, I want to have pumpkins and little Halloween lights. And we got a Halloween wreath through the door because we have a door that we can do that with. So that's all been surprising and fun.
That's awesome. I'm going to switch it around a little bit and ask, what's something people wouldn't necessarily guess about you? You know, I try to kind of maintain an air of anything could be true about me. I think one thing that less folks know about me already is that I enjoy being something a little unexpected. So I can never tell what people might not be able to guess about me. In this outfit that I love country music might be a little bit obvious, but the rest of the time it might not be. That I equally love punk rock and hip hop might be a surprise and might not be. I was in a sorority. That's always my nobody can guess that about me. And I'm actually still very close with some of my sorority sisters. I had a weird, complicated time, but I do still very much love some of those people. I truly don't know. I'm impressed. I am surprised by all of those things. So that's very cool. What do you like about leading spiritual communities or religious communities? What have you enjoyed in the past? And just as a flip side, since we know that there's no senior leader who loves all of the parts of the job equally, including speaking to myself, what have you enjoyed in the past and what's a little less inspiring to you?
Wow, I like a lot of stuff about my job. I've been reflecting recently on what an actually very cool job this is. I love getting to know people in a way that people don't get to know people in almost any other space. You talk to your clergy person in a way you don't talk to almost anybody else. And I really care about what people believe and how people are motivating themselves to continue to do things in the world, how people are making sense of and meaning out of the kind of chaotic world around all of us. I'm really inspired by people who have been doing activist work and community work and caring for each other for longer than I've been alive. I find it so cool to get to be in and really in multi-generational community. I love participating in raising other people's kids, or have a whole lot of desire to have my own, but I really want to help other people raise their kids in a way that like promotes those people's flourishing. I love getting to see people grow and change in their like leadership skills, or in how they think about things, or in like the depth of their commitment to whatever. And I love getting to be there for the stuff that is really great and the stuff that is really hard. When I worked in the hospital, sometimes I would be on my way to attend to a death, and the noise that they played whenever a baby was born would play. And it was the most clear encapsulation of what this job ultimately is and what I love about it, just being really alive in the space between birth and death. And so I love those things. I love talking, and I love being on a stage, and I love a lot of other stuff about it too, but the stuff that I love most is that connection piece. I don't love paperwork. I don't love long meetings. I don't love fights that aren't about anything. I struggle mightily with a fight over paint colors. That makes me pretty irritable. But yeah, the admin stuff has never been my single favorite thing, and I'm really glad in this context to work with a staff team that contains several people who are better at that stuff than I am.
Teamwork is awesome, isn't it? That's been my saving grace too. Someone put in the chat, which is a follow-up to a question before, where in the area have you chosen your home to be? Where are you living?
Yeah, so I live in Southeast DC. We live in Anacostia, and we're really, really happy here. So it's far enough away that I get to like change gears on my way into West on Sunday morning, or when I'm coming in to work during the week, but close enough that I can get there. I gave up having a senator in order to live in the city, so that I can sign on to things that you can't sign on to if you're not a resident of DC, so that I can participate in really community-based activism. And we live where we live because my wife picked this house. Caitlin decided that this was the place that we saw that they were in love with. And one of my greatest joys in life is giving Caitlin things that they want and things that they like. And so I'm happy here, they're happy here. This cat is obsessed with windows.
It's very entertaining, and again, very October-y, I think.
She's seasonal. She's a pumpkin spice cat.
What do you like about West so far? And what do you look forward to in the next, whatever the, post middle of pandemic time period that we are able to contemplate at this point, like the next year, next 2 years? What are you looking forward to, and what do you like?
I like a lot of things about West so far. I have found the people in leadership and the people who are serving on teams with me to be really flexible, really interested in doing things, not just in the way that things have been done or in the way that they have thought was the best way, but the way that works best for us as a team. I have found people really interested in trying new things, and that's very exciting to me. One of my favorite conversations recently was one that I had with the officiants team, where everybody had thoughts of, hey, what if we tried this? What if we tried this? What if we tried this? And I love that energy of being enthusiastic about trying something new, of knowing that like, stuff, but not everything. That really, that's really fun to work with. And it matches my own perspective of, let's try things until we like something. And then when we don't like that thing anymore, let's do a new thing. So I really, I appreciate the openness to change, and also the depth with which people have been engaging with me. People at West listen when I talk, and that sounds really some of you from West are like, yes, of course we listen when you talk. We hired you so you could talk and we could listen. But it's pretty common for clergy people to have groups of people listening to them every Sunday who are not internalizing anything. And I've been here for like 5 seconds, and I can tell from my conversations, from the feedback I get, that folks are engaging with what I'm actually saying, not what they've decided I would be saying, not right, but like actually. So there's a lot of things, but those are some of the things that I'm really enjoying.
That's awesome. And what do
I look forward to
like
in the next couple
all permissions for who knows what the future holds.
Right.
But is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to in the next few years? Like maybe not having this pandemic era, for example, could be a
yeah, I mean, that would be very cool. I mean, I'm looking forward to, even in like the very immediate future, I'm really looking forward to our auction next month. I think that's going to be really fun. I'm excited to see what it's like to actually get to participate in that. That's going to be really fun for me. I'm excited about what it looks like when we can think about using our space in new ways, when we can imagine together what it's like if there is also like a WES event that happens on Wednesday night rather than only Sunday morning, or what is it like if we have a family dance, right, where anybody of any age can come and we just have like a dance and some snacks. These are things that we can't do right now, but there are things that would be really exciting to do if we had slightly less pandemic than we currently have. But on the way from here to there, I'm excited about what we are making up in this kind of mushy, weird between time. And I'm excited to do the making up with people who are so engaged and creative themselves.
Cool. So just practically speaking, I've found that as I go around the Beltway, people are a little mystified by how clergy and leaders work. So when do you work during the day and week? What's your day off? And how's it best to get a hold of you? Just what's the like basics of your work week, your working
Yeah,
week?
So I work, well, it's now like Saturday through Thursday. So I work every day except for Friday, some. I don't work 8-hour days all of those days because it's 6 days, and that would be too much. Generally, I don't start working until sometime afternoon because I usually have meetings in the evening, and the way that I make that up to myself is by sleeping in the morning and by running my errands in the morning, and getting to have a little bit of extra space there. I take my Fridays off pretty seriously, and so I do an increasingly good job of not so much as reading my email on my day off. Broadly, the best way to get a hold of me is to email me, and then I will get back to you and we can set up a phone call or a Zoom. But if you have something that you need a quick answer to, I can be reached by text. Calling me out of the blue is a really bad idea. I won't answer that. I don't want to be called unless something is on fire or someone is dying and needs me, because I don't like the telephone. And that's kind of a generational thing. A lot of millennials and Gen Z folks find phone calls really interruptive, where a text or an email is something that I can take a second to get back to. And so it helps me, like if I'm in the flow of doing something, I can say, okay, here's a message, and then I can put it to the side and answer it once I've finished this task, instead of this task being fully interrupted for a phone call and then, hey, what was I doing over here? So that's kind of the general sketch of my work week. I'm in the office most Thursdays, which is kind of time for me to get a lot of stuff done, hang out in my office, but it's also time when I schedule a good amount of meetings. So if you're wanting an in-person meeting, chances are I'm going to suggest a Thursday, but I can, I can be flexible on when meetings are.
Great. So you're saying it's best to get a hold of you. You said that, not the phone, but texting if you need to, email, stuff like that. What sort of response time should people expect? And what if it's urgent or an emergency?
Yeah, so if it's an emergency, a text message is your best bet, because I am 34 years old. My phone is here at all times. I don't know how to do another thing. I probably should learn, but I don't. So if you send me a text message, I will see it. And if it's urgent, I will get back to it immediately. If something is I do my best to answer emails within 24 hours. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes too many other things are happening, or I don't have the information that I need to get back to you within 24 hours. I try in those cases to say, hey, I don't have the information. Can I get back to you? But that's also not always going to happen. I haven't let anything sit for more than 3 days in the past several months. And the longer stuff is stuff that's not pressing. It's stuff that it's like, hey, could we talk about maybe eventually? I also, once a month, I get a weekend where I am not supposed to have to do work on all of the weekend days. So like this past weekend, if you emailed me, you probably didn't hear from me until this morning. Because I try to have some semblance of balance in my life and some ability to go and do a cute thing like paint a pumpkin at a farm with my wife.
Nice. We had a couple of questions come in about this topic. So how do you maintain boundaries of work and not work is one of them.
Yeah.
I think everybody can be better at that. Right? So
yeah.
Share your
Those
wisdom.
are really hard, and I've actually been thinking about this a lot right now, particularly because we're starting a new relationship together, and so we can set new expectations, but also because the 2 years of like very intense pandemic times it was really hard to make any kind of distinction for a bunch of reasons, right? People needed things at all kinds of strange times. I was home all the time, and work and home were literally in the same place. In Los Angeles, my office was in our bedroom, and the place that I did Sunday mornings from was in our living room, and it was just kind of all one space with some frequency in Los Angeles. I would be doing a service in the living room, and my roommate would be doing a service in his room a wall away from me. It was very intense and very overmushed, not a great time. I am working to have a dedicated office space that isn't just the kitchen here, but having it so that the computer is here and I do meetings and work here and I hang out over there and I go to sleep upstairs. That actually chunks it up quite a lot. Going into the office once a week, which I might wind up expanding into a couple of times a week, puts a nice line between where is home and where is work. Caitlin does a really good job of reminding me not to respond to emails when I'm not supposed to be responding to emails. I've developed a system for myself where when I can't keep myself from checking the email, I don't always respond to the email. I just put a star on it that says, answer this when you get back. So I'm working on what those boundaries look like, and I appreciate your support in keeping those healthy and present, and understanding that sometimes I'm going to have to say that's not a time that I can do things, or I'm going to have to take a minute to get back to you.
Yeah, someone else just wanted to clarify, if you want to be texted in cases of emergency, do you share your personal cell number?
So I have a cell phone number that is a dedicated West number. It's not my office number, it's my West number. So one of my practices is whenever I start with a new community or in a new area of the country, I get a Google Voice number that is dedicated to doing work stuff. That way I can tell which line is ringing, and I can make some different assumptions about what kind of phone calls are happening, right? That way, if there's a phone call or a text to my West number, I'm more likely to answer the phone call than if it's to my personal number, because my West number doesn't get spam phone calls. Great,
very, very smart. So for all the rest of you and for the rest of Wes, I'm just sharing a document that I did not create it, but I have been maintaining it, about, we call it the nitty gritty of ministry, but of course it applies to senior leadership as well. And it sort of just gives some broad outlines. It's sort of just good practices in general. So I encourage you to read it in your own time and share it with others. Because like, I hesitate to even say this in this kind of environment where I feel like everybody has been working their tails off for a number of years with less support than the average minister gets. However, ministry is particularly susceptible to like work bleed, if that's not too gross to say. And so just maintaining those boundaries, like Casey just outlined, helps your clergy person just be like their best self at work. As we all know, we need times of rest in order to do our best work. And I just would say it's not even that we need rest in order to work better, but just as human beings, we need to rest and have full lives in order to be good people. And you want that in your staff and your leaders, I think. So that document is just some tips on that, and I'm sure you can think of other things that would be helpful around that. I have a question of what observations or wonderings do you have about West so far?
That's a very good question. I mean, a lot of them. I am a person who is paying attention, and one of the things I think the first several months of a new relationship with a community are about is kind of behaving as though I'm a sociologist, trying to figure out, hey, what are these people up to? And so I have mostly been trying to wander around and look at things and go, oh, what is this? What is this? One of the things that I noticed is that communication gets a little wonky from time to time. It's not always clear who the contact person is for something or where the link comes from. I think we could work on, and I hope to work on, making things make a little more sense. There is some surprise for me, even though I recall that I was told this during candidating, so this is maybe my own fault that I'm surprised that there are so many kind of specific I would call them rituals, but specific things that you all do throughout the year, right? There is an auction, there is remembrance service, there is a stone soup, there is, and I had heard of these things, but I had not realized the level of importance until I started getting into trying to make plans around where all of these things are. I think it's great that they're there. I'm just a little surprised by it. And I notice that there are like a pretty wide range of levels of involvement, which is normal, but I notice that it's true. And so I notice that there are some people who I see in almost every meeting I go to, and some people who I like only ever see on Sunday morning, and that is all a-okay, but it is a thing that I'm aware of and I want to be attentive to when we are looking for people for committees, or when we are talking about like how do we set our own boundaries and where are we as individuals saying yes too much. And as a fellow yes sayer, I really feel for those of you who find yourself doing all the things. And also I don't want anyone who doesn't have the time to do all the things to not feel like there's a place for them to connect. So that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I guess I'm wondering a lot of things. One of the things I'm wondering is like what WES means to each of you, and that's kind of a long-term project of learning. But it seems like, and I heard over and over again, both in candidating and in my early days, that a lot of folks at West, the connection isn't necessarily to ethical culture or any particular bigger organization, but to West specifically. And that's special, that there is an anywhere that you can feel connected to in that kind of way. And so I really enjoy getting to talk with you at greater length about what is important about West, what is important about ethical culture, what is important about all these various pieces of your identity as West. I think that stuff is fascinating, and I also think that knowing more of it will help me understand and like be present with you better.
Well, we did have a question that's a little bit on the spot, but someone's wondering what your thoughts on increasing volunteer engagement at WES are, which is sticky, especially in this era. But something they're curious about. So I'm just wondering if you have any early thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's super sticky and complicated. One of the things that I think, well, I have two kind of main categories of thought around this. One of which is about making it seem fun, because it is actually quite a lot of fun, even when you're in a meeting for longer than you would like to be, and even when there's like irritating stuff to kind of fight your way through, because you connect with people in doing that work about something that you care about in a way that it is hard to duplicate in any other way. So I hope that we can find ways both to make the work fun and to show folks that it is a good time actually to be an officiant. It is a good time to sing with the choir. It is a good time even to be on the board. It is a good time to serve on the CRC and the LLDC and all of these various different places. And I think some of that is even just about communicating. I've talked to a lot of people about like short TikTok length videos that people can be like, oh, hey, yay for this thing. Maybe we can get excited about this thing. So that's one set of thoughts. The other set is about making it obvious how you get involved in leadership, like making a path that is clear and actually works. To the degree that any path can work, right? I think people sometimes can see the kind of top layer leadership positions, right? Trang as board president is a pretty visible person. And then you see, oh, that's a lot more work than I am prepared for. Yeah, don't start there. Not a great idea. But okay, where might you start? And I don't know, I think a lot of organizations don't have a clear enough sense of, you might start over here and then try out this and then try out this. And I'm really excited about the upcoming like LLDC elections and working with the new leadership development team to actually do the developing of leadership, of finding people who have interest and skills and potential and helping them learn how to do the tasks that they might want to help us do. And some of that is about developing like clear handbooks for committees and like clear, here are the things that we in fact do. And they exist, but to the degree that like people are internalizing that knowledge, I think that's where those things overlay. There's a communication piece too.
Yeah, for sure. Great. Do you have any last? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would hope that like volunteering at West doesn't feel like just another task to do. And that's part of that, like remembering that it's fun. Doing this work, ideally, hopefully, feeds something in you too. Right, we're doing this work to keep the organization going, but we're keeping the organization going for a reason. And doing the work of that reason should ideally also promote a feeling of togetherness, of belonging, of connection in the people doing that work. So I would hope that we can foster a spirit where this isn't just, like the seventh thing on my to-do list today. This isn't just another meeting. And I feel like even though for me, like literally this is my job and they're all just another meeting, there is something about that there is a point to what we're doing and a point that is bigger than getting a product made or getting even just like getting a report out, right? There is a point that is about something way more special than just the thing.
Yeah, amen. Do you have any other, that's all my questions. I'm wondering, and we answered all the ones that came in too, which were really questions. So anything else you want to talk about, or do you feel like you get to talk a lot?
I do feel like I get to talk a lot. I feel like we hear a lot of what I have to say.
Well, thanks for taking this time.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you were all here. And if you have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them as passed through Megan.
Well, why don't we see if anything else comes in at the last minute? But until then, let me say, I alluded before that we're going to do the official title startup number 2. I think in January, we do have a date penciled in, but I don't think I'll share it yet because we are just waiting to see how things work out and what January is like. And in that one, that's going to be more of a dive into norms at Wes, myths that you may be holding. And by myths, I just mean that they're not that they're not true, but stories that are true at Wes that people need to know about, stories you have about your history and about your past and what matters and what doesn't to you. So so look for those dates when they come to pass soon enough. I do have a couple of questions. Oh, you got some thanks for your add-on from about volunteering. Someone wants to know, other than painting pumpkins, what do you do for fun? And someone else asked, what are your hobbies outside ministry? So we'll combine those two.
Those are great questions. And the answer is basically anything I can get my hands on. I tend to switch from thing to thing. I have a new practice where once a month on my day off, I take myself to a museum all by myself, and I don't have to talk to anybody if I don't want to. I can just experience a museum. And experiencing a museum is one of my favorite things in the world. I do making my decisions through a kind of convoluted process where I assign an emoji to each of 3 museums that I have decided are the options for that month. And then I go on my Twitter and I post the emojis with no explanation of what they stand for. And then I go to whichever museum random emoji selection picks for me. This past month, it was the Hirshhorn, which was possibly the best choice for me of a first museum. I have a deep love of modern abstract art, and the Hirshhorn has a really cool exhibit up while they're under construction. They are only showing art by people who aren't men, and that is like a fascinatingly framed show with a lot of work that I've never seen before, and that makes me happy. And it's worth noting that when I first went to the Modern Art Museum in Los Angeles, I wanted to fight the curator and insisted that that's how you get a new curator. It's like a Highlander. You defeat the curator and then you become the curator. I was mad about how they had their Rothkos hung too close together. You have to give them space. So I have big feelings about curation. I make some art at home. I did some tie-dye projects recently. I love paint. Someday you will probably see some of my many large abstract paintings, which are kind of my favorite thing to make. For a while, early in the pandemic, Caitlin and I made heat transfer vinyl images to put on tote bags and t-shirts. So if you ever see me out and about, I don't usually carry this bag to work, but I'll tell you about it anyway. Carrying a bag that has the outline of a rainbow and clouds and the text that says "that's fucked up." Caitlin and I made that. That was a project of ours. We go and get our nails done as part of our kind of like centering process. I like to be outside. I don't really like to hike, but I like to go somewhere that is outside and then sit there. So I've been enjoying finding new places to go outside and sit. In this kitchen, which is larger than any kitchen I have had in longer than I think I know how to answer, I am really enjoying learning how to cook new things. This morning, I made a very delicious breakfast thing. Well, I helped make a very delicious breakfast thing. You can hear Caitlin laughing, which was like an egg in the hole, but like in the way of cassava pepe. So I'm enjoying myself doing things. I dye my hair a lot, as you might have noticed. That is a hobby of mine. Doing art on my face and my head is a hobby of mine. Buying kind of ridiculous shirts and then wearing them to my very serious job is a hobby of mine.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of a little bit more serious questions, and then I think we'll wrap it up for questions because, you know, one can only go on for so long. Well, one is, let me start with this one. You've come through the UUA system. How much adaptation may you need to make for the AEU?
I don't think I know yet. I think I'm still learning what exactly is different. I think the basic skills of the job are widely the same, not even just from the UUA to the AAU, but like from organization to do it well. There are things that change depending on like the theological placement of a community, but there are things that are the same, right? Conflict resolution is roughly the same, regardless of what you believe about God. And in the space between the AEU and the UUA, I didn't come through a UUA system that really cared about my talking about what I did or didn't believe about God. So most of my skills are just kind of like, I don't know, that's a question mark over there and I'm doing skills. So I feel like there's a lot of similarity, but while I am extremely familiar with like institutional UU land, I am much less familiar with institutional AEU land, and I am learning quite a lot, and am really thankful for all of the people who are having conversations with me that help me see, okay, how does this work that is different from how that works, and what's working over here that is maybe not working over there, what's not working over here that is maybe working over there. How do we like look at these systems and help them be the best systems that they're able to be?
Someone's written, what sets you apart from UUA ministers that you know? Tricky question to answer.
Wow. I'm trying to answer this without sounding like I think I'm the specialist little snowflake, but I do think I'm the specialist little snowflake. I don't know anybody like me in any part of my life. I am different from and the same as all kinds of people in all kinds of ways. I think I tend to be a little, I don't know, I can make some generalizations to set myself apart from, but I don't know how accurate those generalizations are in the first place and how like worth making they are. Yeah. Here's what I will tell you. When I started working at the hospital, the people on the first floor I was assigned to, the nurses who worked there, had spent the last year with a chaplain that they really, really loved. And I got to the floor and they said, "Oh, you're the new Kevin." And I said, "No, I'm the only Casey."
I like it. Someone is wondering what you have, do you have to get certified or whatever as an ethical culture leader? I love it when like folks are like, what do you have to, why do you have all these hoops? Do you have to get certified?
Yes, so my contract includes a promise that I will jump through that set of hoops, and I am working on jumping through that set of hoops. And I have a meeting actually tomorrow with the person who is kind of supervising my process with the AEU. And we are hoping that it will not take me very long because I do have quite a bit of training that is less specialized, but I'm in a course through the American Humanist Association on humanist worldviews, past and present, just kind of a global survey of historic and present approaches to humanism. And I will be taking at least one other class. So I am doing the learning, I am having the conversations, I am jumping through the hoops. I am a very well-trained dog in that way.
Awesome. And I think to wrap up, what can Wes do to support your work as Wes's senior leader?
You can keep showing up. And I mean that as in like, you can keep showing up on Sunday, you can keep showing up to meetings, you can keep showing up to stuff like this. When I send you emails that say things like, would you like to be on committee? You can say yes when you're able and no when you're not. You can engage with me honestly about the things that I say and do. You can bring the concerns that are about me to me, and the concerns that are about policy to the board, and the concerns that are about things that are not my job to the people whose jobs they are. You can keep being good to each other. It's a lot easier to care for people who also care for each other. You can suggest books and museums and things you think I might get something out of. I don't promise to visit or read all of them, but I promise to look at it and go, huh, that's a thing that exists, which is enough to change the course of my patterns of thought sometimes. You can trust me as much as you're able. You can let me be there when stuff is hard. You can let me be there when stuff is good. You can let me hold your hand as literally or metaphorically as is appropriate to your life and situation, through all kinds of things. Let me do the caring. I'm pretty good at it. I would like to do it. And you can remember that I care about you, and also this is my job, both and.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your good answers, Casey. It's not easy to be under the spotlight, so to speak, here in Zoom land, so appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for your careful questions and your thoughtful attention. I have one last task for us to do, and that is, I'm hoping to create another Menti here where we name a hope or a wish for your next chapter at Wes with KC as your senior leader. And I'm going to put that Menti up, and again, go to this website as mentioned up above, and Menti.com and this code, and you can put in more than one hope and wish, I think, if you want to, and we'll let that populate. And if you have hopes and wishes that you'd want to just put in the chat, please do. So we did a thing, everyone. Here we are doing a thing.
I love doing a thing.
We're doing a thing. I don't know how to make this a little smaller for myself, so I guess I'll just watch things come up for a few minutes. Hopes and wishes for Wes's next chapter with Casey. I love these pretty colors that are coming up. Depth, growth, stability. It's awesome. So our next one in January, we'll do storytelling by the fire. You know, Casey will need to remember about winter by that point. So it'll be a fun opportunity for us to get cozy with a warm drink and tell some stories about Wes and what Wes is like, what it's been like, what it's like now, and what you're hoping it will be like in the future. Nice. Any final thoughts from Trang or Casey as we wrap up our time tonight? There's some lovely things coming in.
I would just add thanks for everyone for coming and just really encourage folks to, show up. I think that's a great way of saying it. Just show up to platform, show up to meetings, show up where and when you're able. We'd love to see you on Zoom or otherwise, or in person. Thanks. And thank you, Casey. And thank you as well, Megan, for facilitating this. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you all so much for being here. And I'm really loving seeing all of these hopes and wishes. This feels really good for me. And I appreciate Trang and Megan for being here and helping this work. And I really look forward to having more conversations and learning more.
And for me, I'm just so excited that you're in this next stage. I know how much work it's taken to get here and how much transition there's been. And so I'm just really excited for this next chapter. It can only grow deeper and better together. So, so congratulations. I hope that you do have a Wes level appropriate celebration or / party at some time when appropriate. And, don't forget, I'm always here if you need me. I'm going to stop sharing so I can say goodbye properly. But thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.